Chapter 3, talking about, well, 3.5, we're talking about sampling and surveys and different ways to do it. So we'll talk about what undercoverage is, how that leads to bias, right? Systematically favoring one response over another. We'll talk about non-response bias and other things that can lead to bias in a sample survey. All right, so even if you select something at random, there could be some sources of bias. So depending on how you're doing this random selection, um, you could wind up with undercoverage if some members of the population are less likely to be chosen or cannot be chosen for the sample. So, um, for instance, if you were to just send email, say you want randomly selected people from a list, and the way that you sent them that survey once they were randomly selected was over email. Chances are, if you survey in this way, you might leave out some of the older folks that don't do email, um, or when they only do it when they have to. So if they received a survey via email, you would probably not get a response. So you would be uh, your method of sampling would lead to an undercoverage of maybe your elderly population or senior population, I think is the proper term these days. That's an example of undercoverage. Um, all right, so non-response, the same thing could happen, right? If you're sending out a survey via email, just, could just have a bunch of people that don't respond. Um, and those people, you got to think about why they're not responding. Are they busy? Did you send them something in a weird way? Perhaps you were just asking people and you used someone as excuse me, tickle in my throat. You sent someone, I swear it's not COVID. Um, you sent someone out to to ask people something from a survey, and they're a loud talker. They might just be scaring people. They're like, "Excuse me, sir." I don't know, probably not. But anyways, anything that could lead to people being less likely to respond would cause a non-response bias. Yeah. Okay. And so you can also have a response bias. Something that I've always thought about when I was in high school, and I haven't seen them do it. At least they don't do it where I can see it anymore. They used to give all teenagers this like crazy survey that asked them, and we had to do it during our English class. They would ask us crazy stuff like if we had had sex, um, like how often, and like really personal stuff. But it was like anonymous, right? So I never believed that, so I always lied. They would they would ask all kinds of very personal things that you would never tell your parents or anything like that. Things about drug use and things like that. So I always thought to myself, do people actually tell the truth on these surveys? Because I didn't. Um, and so that is the type of thing that could lead to response bias, right? You're like, oh, we gave all these teenagers this anonymous survey and told them to write. I mean, my name was on it, so it didn't feel very anonymous. Um, but they said that they wouldn't share it with anyone. But if people think that a response to a question could be detrimental to them, then they'll lie, and that could lead to response bias. Um, so I mean, you're not going to be able to ever avoid it. I know you can read. I don't know if I can say it better than they're saying it here. Um, but what we're going to do when we actually create a survey is just really think of all of the different ways that we can avoid these three biases. And we'll do an example of that here. I believe right now. All right. Um, so a flop in survey history in 1936. They sent out a survey. They wanted to know what would be the outcome of the election between. So you don't even know who Alf Landon is, right? But you know who Franklin D. Roosevelt is. Sucks for Mr. Landon. So they sent over 10 million, my goodness, ballots to its subscribers. So the magazine Literary Digest. Okay. They also sent ballots to registered owners of an automobile or a telephone. About 2,400,000 of the ballots were returned, with a large majority favoring Landon. It turns out that Roosevelt won. Okay, so interesting. Sorry, I'm just trying to get the trying to figure out who they sent it out. So they sent out a total, it looks like, of 12,400,000 ballots, right? So 10,000 of those ballots went out to just subscribers of this magazine, and the other ones went out to people who had an automobile or telephone. Keep in mind, this is 1936, where it would be that very, very few people owned an automobile, and a larger amount, but not everyone had a telephone back then as well. These are actually fairly new things. Um, Also, telephones might have been shared by households and things like that back then, is what I've heard, at least. I'm not a history teacher, though, so don't take my word for it. Um, I only want to be good at one thing. No, it's not true. Okay, so let's think about how they could have undercovered the population there. Well, okay, so things that could have led to undercoverage. So for one, not everyone had a phone or car back then. In fact, very few people probably had a car in 1936. Really good old 1900s. Let's see. Also, they're going to only be surveying people that can afford a subscription to a magazine. Subscription. So I think that they are probably going to be undercovering the poor, right? They essentially didn't send any of these surveys to poor people. So essentially, right, what happened is no poor people were surveyed, or very little, right? So it led to under coverage of. Let's be more specific. This leads to under coverage of. I'm just gonna say poor people in poverty. I guess we can say poor. All right. All right, so we talked about undercoverage. Let's talk about non-response. Let's look again at how they did this. Let's see. So they just sent out a ballot and they had them fill out essentially an artificial ballot. I'm just trying to think about what they actually got sent. I mean, were they asked, "Hey, do you want to vote for Landon?" Or, but it was just a fake ballot, just an artificial ballot. Um, okay. So, how might non response have led to bias in this survey? So, if they sent out all of those, all right. So, I mean, it might be the case that people didn't have the time to fill out some fake ballot and mail it back, right? Back in those days, it wouldn't be as easy as, clicking a few buttons and clicking submit, right? You would actually have to take this thing out, do it, put it in the envelope, seal it. Maybe they probably gave you a pre-stamped envelope. Then you'd have to put it in the mailbox. Gosh, that's a lot of stuff to do. You got to go places and stuff. So, maybe it's the case that very busy people might not respond. So, perhaps they got a lot of responses from retired folks, people that aren't working two jobs, as people. Well, if they were lucky enough to have two jobs back then, they were probably working like a dog at their one job for not much money, because there wasn't a lot of labor reforms going on. But then again, also not a history teacher, so don't take my word for it. So very busy people might not be. I can talk. I swear. Very busy people might not respond. Um, so it might be the case that we're favoring. I don't know. I was trying to think of who busy people are. Sorry. Um, yeah, I think that might actually still be kind of leading to undercoverage of people from a lower economic status. Um, okay, did I answer the question? Or did I really want to know how? Let's see how it led to bias. So what's the bias? I do want to. Um, let's be super wordy. This will systematically I probably did not spell that right. I'm going to definitely say there's not two L's in it. I think maybe, I don't know. We'll say people with more leisure time, aka the rich, or people with more money. Now I have to spell leisure? Dang it. Okay, cool. There's a reason why I'm your math teacher and not your history or your English teacher. I can only know how to do so many things. Okay, here we go. Do you know? Oh, hey, I should say hi. How's it going so far? This is all just kind of like wordy stuff. Almost there though. We're almost done. It's gonna be a fairly short lesson as well. So good news, bad. You have to listen to me talk a lot, but or write a lot really. It's a lot of sentences and weird stuff with this, right? You're like, am I in math right now? What's happening? But a lot of this is that way. Okay. Sorry that you have to look at yourself. I hate it when that happens. I don't like it when they do that. When I'm in a meeting, they're sharing their screen, and then I can see myself on the shared screen, and it's mirrored, and I start thinking about why we're in the matrix. Just kidding. I don't think about stuff. I did that when I was younger. Okay. Hey, if the magazine followed up with people who didn't return their ballots and was able to obtain responses, would this eliminate the bias described in part A or B? And explain. So if they followed up with getting all the ballots in, would it eliminate undercoverage and non-response bias, or both, or neither? Explain. So mailing that out, right? That's definitely going to, it will eliminate undercoverage, right? I'm sorry, it will eliminate, my bad, non-response. But not under coverage, because they still never gave, I'm sure that they didn't give any of those ballots to really poor people. So we'll eliminate wrong response, but not under coverage. Because chances are I can write. So probably very few poor people got the ballots in the first place. Yeah. Struggling this morning with English. Yeah. All right. And that's it. Hey, we did these things. It was awesome. Maybe.